Hello and welcome back to Assetto Corsa. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the second free car that came in the latest update, and that is the Porsche 911 or 911, how some people call it, RSR 2017. Now this car was supposed to be in the Porsche Pack 3, but they weren't finished with it, or Porsche didn't like it, or they weren't too happy with it, you know, the developers at Kunos, and so they delayed it and they gave us the, I think it was the 911 Turbo S is what they gave us instead, and so we had to wait for this one. But I think this one was supposed to originally come out in January. It came out late March, but there we go. You know, it's finally here, it's finally out, and it's quite an interesting car. So over the next 10-15 minutes I'm going to be talking about how interesting this car is, and probably boring you with some of the specifications, which is where I should start. Actually, first thing I should mention is don't drive cars whilst tired. Seems like that's good advice both for real cars and cars in simulators. It was not easy to drive this while tired. I'm also recording this on the day that is going out, hopefully, and it should be, that was also the day of the Chinese Grand Prix, so I was up early for that one as well. Anyway, back to this car. This is a single-seat race car for the LM GTE category. So this is a Le Mans racing car. Not the top Le Mans cars, you know, the ones that win and everything, but it is a Le Mans racing car. It weighs 1,240 kilograms, or just about that much, maybe slightly more than that, which is quite a light car, but if you do compare it to the other cars that we've got available, the GT style cars, so that's the GT3 cars, etc., it's on par. I think the 12C or the 650S, they're around 1,260 kilos, or somewhere around that figure, so, you know, it is around those. Now, the interesting thing about this, or at least the first interesting thing about this, is the engine. It's a water-cooled 6-cylinder box engine, so it's a flat 6. No problems there, except it's mid-engined. Yeah, mid-engined, not rear-engined, so those people who, you know, really like Porsche's rear-engine philosophy, I'm sorry, but this 911 is the first mid-engine 911 as I completely lose it. As you can see, tired, not used to the car, and just, I'm going to have a few off moments like that. I did get better by the third lap, but I think the third lap is way too long for this video, so you may not see the third lap, you'll just see the first two. I guess. Yeah, something like that. I'll think about it. I'll think about how long this video goes on for. Anyway, like I was saying, this is a mid-engined car, not a rear-engine car, so that means that the engine is, well, it's not really moved so much. Before, it was on behind the rear axle, which gave that Porsche, you know, that very, very distinctive Porsche styling, and the Porsche oversteer and the understeer, whatever you got, that distinctive handling package that you got with Porsche is, or the 911s anyway, is what it had before. Now, I think 2016 Porsche took a year out of racing, or at least out of Le Mans racing in this GT category, or the Endurance Championship in the GTE category, and they decided that they're going to come back this year with a vengeance. So this car came out in January, and it was mid-engined, and everyone was like, what? That's not right. But there we go. We'll talk about that in a few moments. Single mass flywheel, and of course the power on this car is 510 horsepower, so about 500 bhp, and that comes in at, actually I don't know when that comes in. Porsche are quite secretive about the information on this car, and I think I had to extrapolate a torque curve. So I can give you a torque figure which looks to be around 450-ish Newton meters of torque, and that's at around, again, these are just approximate figures, 6,750 RPM. Somewhere around that figure is where you get your maximum torque, but again, that's all, Porsche didn't supply these figures, so there we go. Obviously, I think they want to keep these things secret. It is essentially a new car. The transmission is a 6-speed sequential constant mesh gearbox. Now, I don't really know too much about constant mesh gearboxes. What I do know is I seem to be flat shifting. I mean, I noticed through this, I seem to be flat shifting. I had to actually use the clutch to get out of the pits. I had my foot on the clutch. So, and then after that, I don't seem to have been using the clutch, or at least it's used the clutch in such a way that you can't even tell. It's like maybe a Formula 1 style shift. I really don't know. But that's how we've got it, and it is of course flappy paddle, so you know, you can hear that right there. That's what I've been using. Three disc carbon race clutch, so obviously you need that carbon race clutch there. It's lightweight, it's strong, it's going to last quite a long time, and all that kind of good stuff. I'm not going to go too much into the car. Like I said, this is more about what it's like in Assetto Corsa as opposed to the actual car itself and all its nitty-gritty details, which I could go into for 30-40 minutes at a time if I really wanted to and bore you guys to death. The body of the car is, well, it's a carbon fiber aluminium, actually no, it's an aluminium steel design. It's not carbon fiber, aluminium steel design. I'm guessing there's honeycomb lattices and all that kind of stuff. Oddly enough, there's not a door and you don't get out through the window. You can actually take the roof off, or a hatch in the roof, and that's actually how you get in and out of the actual cockpit, which is kind of weird, but there we go. That's just how it is. You can see the roll cage and all that. I don't have to talk about the roll cage and all that kind of stuff. The bodywork is of course carbon fiber reinforced polymers, so CFRP. That's your standard, what you get now in these cars. So it just gives you that lightness. It gives you that lightness, but that sturdiness. And you know, carbon fibers are a very good material, especially in racing. Just because it looks good when it's bare, and you can just see that on the steering wheel in front of you. Actually, that's bare carbon fiber right in front of you, probably with a lacquer on it, but essentially that's as bare as you're going to get it, and it looks pretty good. Now you can imagine that on the outside of the car, on the grills, on the bumpers, or all that kind of stuff, wherever it is, maybe on little roof scoops or wherever it puts it, rear wing maybe, it would look really good. But it's not just the looks of carbon fiber that's the important part. Carbon fiber has a very good structural engineering properties with its strength and with its flexibility. I mean, carbon fiber is ridiculously flexible for a material that is that strong. So you know, and it is really light. If you were to put, I'm just going off on a bit of a tangent here, but if you were to put a steel suspension rod, so you know, on your multi-link suspensions, if you were to put a steel suspension rod versus a carbon fiber suspension rod just with a steel end, so you know, with a steel link or whatever, it would be, you would probably be saving, each one of those steel rods would probably be about 500 grams, 400-500 grams as I bop the Armco barrier. Yeah, about 400-500 grams. I'm gonna approximate. It's been a long time since I've looked at these things, and a carbon fiber one would be all of 30 grams, if that. So you know, massive weight saving there. Anyway, I digress. Suspension. Actually, I don't digress. We're going into suspension. Double wishbone front axle, vibration dampers, twin coil setup, all that kind of stuff. Of course, you've got your anti-roll bars and everything. Electro-hydraulic power steering, you can feel that, but it's quite heavy. I'll talk about that in a minute. And on the rear axle, it's an integrated rear axle subframe, again double wishbone, same kind of setup, anti-roll bars and all that kind of stuff, and tripod drive shaft. Now that does mean that all these things are configurable, and in Assetto Corsa you can, if you're going to the setup, suspension settings, damper settings, all those kind of adjustments, you've got about 30 adjustments that you can be making to the suspension, just the suspension. I'm not talking about the wheels, so just the suspension. Pretty good. Going on to the wheels though, you do have forged light alloy wheels, 12.5J R18s. So you have got that Michelin slick tires on these. You get hard, medium, soft and super soft. You do have a super soft compound in this, and it's pretty good. I'm using the medium compounds. I don't know whether you saw that at the start of the video. I can't remember what was at the start of the video, but I am using the medium compound one, so that's why I think it's probably best to test, because I can see what the car drives like, sort of when it's not got all the grip in the world, but it's not completely void of grip. And the rear axle, same kind of thing, one piece forged light alloy wheel, 13J R18, so slightly thicker I think, and I'm not going to talk about offsets or any of that. So, and then the Michelin slick tires is 3171 R18s. So there you go. And all the electrics inside the car. You've got the Cosworth displays in the central logger unit. Like I said, carbon fiber steering wheel, multifunction. I'll talk about what's available on there. You've got shift paddles, quick release, doesn't really matter. And these are the things that are quite interesting. Collision avoidance system, which doesn't seem to work. I tried it, it doesn't seem to work. And of course you've got all the LED headlights, tail lights. There's an illuminated car number which doesn't seem to be working either. I don't know if anyone can see in the replay box, it doesn't seem to be lit up at all, so there's that as well. We're not going to worry about the wing mirrors or any of that. They are adjustable, but that doesn't, what's that going to do? We're in a simulator, we don't need to talk about that. What we do need to talk about is what this car is like in the simulator, so we'll start with looks. From the outside, it does look like a Porsche. It really does look like a Porsche. Very, very nicely modeled, very, very nicely detailed. It looks just like the RSR, you know, this year's RSR car. It's very, very nicely done, so well done to Kunos there. From the back, I'm going to say a general note about the Porsche, or this generation of Porsches. I'm going to say Porsche a lot. This Porsche, this generation of Porsche, or this particular race version of it, which I think is probably the case, does have a back end that looks a bit like an Aston Martin. I think it's just the shape of the lights. It's got that slit in the middle, which obviously we've seen on some Porsches now. But because it's got a big rear wing and a diffuser and all that kind of stuff, and where the exhausts are laid out, at first glance it looks like an Aston Martin DB11, DBS, DB9, whatever they are, in the race variants. I think it's the DB9, isn't it? Or DBS race variant. So, you know, kind of interesting, but I'm not knocking anything off that, because, you know, it's just the car design. And to be completely honest, I like the car designs of Aston Martins, especially at the back. The front sometimes a bit bulky, but again, I digress. Textures, outside, inside, actually fantastic. They're really, really great textures, both outside and in. Just a quick note on the interior, of course you've got the wing, you've got the rear view camera as opposed to a rear view mirror. Everything looks really, really nice inside. It's really well done. I'm quite happy with how everything looks. Now we can talk a little bit about that steering wheel. So it's got your traction control settings on it. Looks like it's got your ABS control settings on it. You've got your speed right above the gear, what gear you're in, so 4th, 5th. You can see above that 130 miles an hour or 140 miles an hour. You've got that. You've got your lap delta, which you can see is green, minus 50, whatever it is, 56.2 or whatever. And then you've got the reference lap below it, which is basically your last lap. Underneath that, you've got your fuel level. You can see I've got, as I'm bouncing around a bit, it's 27. You can see that's dropping quite significantly and quite quickly, and you've got your RPM indicator next to that. On the other side, you've got yourself all your temperatures, so it looks like fuel temperature, oil temperature, water pressure, oil pressure, whatever it is. Fuel temperature, yeah, that's a clever one. No, you're not going to have fuel temperature. Water and oil temperature, so your radiator and all that kind of stuff. So that's absolutely great. Apparently it also has tyre pressure monitoring systems and all that. I don't know how to get to that in Assetto Corsa. I don't know whether it's actually available in Assetto Corsa, but we do have the tyre monitoring and pressure system on that at my toppers, which you can see over to the bottom left hand side of the screen. What else do I need to talk about on the interior? Yes, actually there is something. You may have noticed a little blue lights flashing everywhere. So I want to talk a little bit about this before I move on to sounds and physics. So come on, make a mistake. Make a mistake. There we go. Right. Of course, no blue lights. Great. Okay, well you can see just on the dashboard, you can see a little blue line, 2 blue lines, and you can just see some lights on either side of the multifunction display. You can see some dots there for some lights. I was trying to figure out what these are. They're actually slip indicators. They're telling you how much your car is sliding, which is actually quite cool. So, and I'm talking about lateral sliding. I was actually quite impressed with this, and so when your car is sliding, it's going to start lighting up and flashing whichever side is sliding, and how much it's sliding is, I think, the frequency of the flash. Really, really cool. Handy feature. Of course, they've got the collision detection and all that in the real life car. I tried it in this, it didn't seem to work. Maybe I set it up wrong, I don't know. Sounds, quickly moving on to sounds. Sounds for this car, I quite like it. I do really like the sounds. It's a nice sound. It's quite raw. Outside is quite it snarls quite a bit. Obviously, you can tell it's a 6-cylinder engine, but it's got a nice snarl to it. It sounds quite racy. It sounds quite aggressive. it sounds like the car is being pushed, and inside it's a lot more muted, but it still sounds like a race car. I suppose I would want the transmission whine to be a slightly higher. I would expect a higher transmission whine than the current sound, but I suppose I could adjust the volumes if I really had to. But apart from that, I think the sounds are fine. It's just maybe volume-wise inside's a little bit odd. Moving on, last but not least, and probably the most important, the physics. What is this car like to drive? Well, I'm going to say straight out that if you drive this car with cold tyres, you're going to be locking up the brakes, because you're going to be locking the wheels. You're not going to be locking the brakes. You're going to be not having very effective braking, because you're going to be locking the wheels, even when you're pressing the brakes in halfway down the pedal, if that, and you're going to be locking it. So on the first lap, you notice me locking the brakes a lot. However, if you do smash the pedal down, if you're in 4th gear or below, and you do press the pedal all the way, even when your tyres are heated up, you will have a tendency to lock the rear brakes. So I'd probably shift the brake bias forward maybe a couple of ticks. That's my advice on that. The car, though, to drive it's really, really nice. I thoroughly enjoyed driving this car. It felt very, very agile, and I was getting the corners wrong. I was getting my entrances into the corners slightly wrong, because I wasn't used to that. I just wasn't used to how agile the car is. Nevertheless, if you do take it in too hot into a corner, it understeers. It really does understeer. Also, if you hit the hard curbs, it doesn't seem to like the curbs. The suspension seems to be quite stiffly sprung, and it doesn't have much on the way of rebound. So when you hit those, it does bounce you out quite significantly, as I'm sort of all over the place here. So it does bounce you out quite significantly, and it can compromise you for the next couple of corners if it is. You can change it, no? Like I said, there's so many adjustment options. You could change that to however you preferred. I'm just looking at it default out of the box. Grippy. It's still fairly grippy even on these medium tires. Yes, it does have slip, like I said, but it is fairly grippy, and I think there's plenty of power and plenty of torque to get it up to about 170-ish miles an hour. So that's what you get on it. Final rating for this car, I'm going to give this car a 9.5. I think it's thoroughly well done. In fact, no, I'm going to give this car a 10. It's really, really well done. I think it's one of the best Porsches out of all the Porsches that are currently in the Assetto Corsa. So from all the Porsche packs and this one that was included. And I think, did we get another free one? We may have got another free one right at the start, before the Porsche packs. I don't know. Yeah, wasn't it the 919? No, it wasn't. 918? I don't know. Anyway. 10 out of 10 for this car. I think it's well worth a drive. It drives fantastically. It's really, really enjoyable, and it's really, really well modeled, textured, and simulated. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to hit the like button if you like this video. Subscribe to the channel for more videos on Assetto Corsa. If you're on Twitch, follow and thumbs up, please. Both of you leave comments in the comments box below, letting me know what you think of this car and whether you agree with my rating of it. And last but not least, do support me on Patreon. Link to that is in the description box below. I would massively, massively appreciate your support. Rewards have been revised, and milestones and goals have also been revised, so you guys will be able to see exactly where I'm taking this channel and, well, taking content creation over the next year. I'll see you guys in the next episode.